podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This is the Overthrow, powered by Spond and brought to you by the Premier League Cricket Club. So welcome everybody to the Overthrow, and it's been a few weeks since we spoke to our guest who we've got today, but we've got the same guy back. We said we're going to get him back, and we're going to talk all things indoor nets, winter training, pre-season, and all those things that people sometimes love them, sometimes hate them. I'm going to ask the first question to my colleague, Mr. Hugh Newsom. Love it or hate it, Hugh?
Well, indoor nets, winter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I hate, Stuart? And bowlers are going to turn around and throw this back at me. You get a quick bowler, and he's bowling off 18 yards in the indoor nets, and he's coming in winter season, and he's 18-yard beamers. That's what we don't like. And they go, he goes, my run-ups. I need my longer run-up and stuff. Just bowl from the line. It's not what you want.
It's not rocket science.
Not seen a ball for 6 months, and somebody's bowling off 18 yards at me in my head. Not good.
Oh dear! And as you can tell, with the laughter in the background, our guest is a bowler. Well, he's more than that. He's a bloody bowling coach. Welcome back, Mr. Stuart Barnes. How you doing, mate?
I'm very well, thank you. Pleasure to be here again.
Hey, all good. Let's ask you that question straight away.
What's the excuse?
Bowlers, should they love them or hate winter training, indoor nets, and getting that ball in the hands the first time?
I think they ought to love it, because what an opportunity for 12 weeks or whatever it is to work back from that first game in like April, May sort of time. Mm-hmm. And just to be better in 2026 than they were in 2025. I get the challenges around it, like indoor, short run-ups, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure we'll get into that. But, hopefully they've gone through some sort of review. How are we as a team going to operate better than we were, and how are we going to operate better as an individual? That's not to get all serious, because you need to have a lot of fun with your mates and stuff as well. You haven't seen each other for a few weeks, but I think I see winter nets as a massive opportunity. Of course I do, because I'm a coach.
But what would be then, as bowlers turn up on that first weekend or whenever it is, what would you say the most common mistakes you see and hear from Premier League club bowlers around the country when they get back in nets?
Just doing the same as they've always done. Mm-hmm. That's it. And I mean, you'll end up being the same player as you were last year. I think a mistake is not knowing what they need to tweak and tidy up and maybe improve. And they just, like I say, just do the same as they've always done. So therefore, they get worse. Because in the last episode, I said, look, you're either getting better or you're getting worse.
Yeah, you've basically just described 95 to 99% of cricketers there, because that is...
Stop it, Hugh, they're all turning off.
I'm going to do exactly what I did last year, and often a bit less, because we tend to have more commitments as we get a little bit older, and somehow expect April, right, 100's coming in, no problem. Oh, shit. Yeah, that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, where would you start, Stuart? You're a Premier League coach of a, shall we call it, a well-known Premier League club this year. Yeah, let's pretend that. You're going to turn up at nets. You've got 12 weeks to get these guys ready for that first game in April. We're going to say it in Birmingham, because that's where you're based at the moment. So we're not talking about one of these hard decks in East Anglia or one of these big green tops up in Manchester. We're talking a sort of a middle of the road sort of that they're used to. What are you going to do the first week or two with these bowlers in terms of getting them set?
I'm going to get them focused. I'm going to say, right, you're going to be bowling as a pair. You're going to be bowling 6 balls, and then you got 6 balls off. And in your 6 balls, you're working together as a pair. You're only using 1 ball between 2. Let's get straight into it. How to look after a ball. We know also that if we can challenge a batter's defence, albeit indoors, if we can challenge a batter's defence, we're going to mark each other on how often we get a batter to play a full defensive shot. So top of off stump sort of thing. Yeah. You bowl your 6 balls each as a pair. When you're not bowling, another pair is bowling. You're going to just have a chat about what just happened. Mm-hmm. How many forward defence shots were you able to get the batters to play? And all of a sudden, what you're doing is you're getting bowlers talking. That's it. You're getting them talking, giving each other feedback. And actually, it doesn't matter if they didn't make the batter play a full defence at all. What matters really is they're just talking about it. Did the ball swing? You know, I got another crap ball. You know, what we're going to do about it? Should we bring our own ball next week to, you know, get it to swing or whatever? How did it feel? You're just getting them to talk just like you would need players to communicate in a game, really. And I think that's it. Think of all the things that club cricketers have to do on a Saturday, and what then does that look like indoors? How can you get them talking? How can you just have one focus every single week? You know, tonight we're gonna bowl a 6-stump channel, but from wide of the crease, because tonight you've got a 40-yard boundary on the leg side and you've got a 60, 70-yard boundary on the offside. So that is what we're going to practice, because we know at the end of May we're playing at, you know, X cricket club, and that is going to be the dimension. So you just add a little bit of context, and I think that's how you get the most out of winter training, really.
I think that nails it with club cricket, particularly because there's so many variances, shall we say, in the grounds, that you need to almost play those games with them to get their head around it all the time, rather than, I'm a big believer that the worst thing they can possibly do is, as you said at the beginning, do what they always do, bowl to the same batters year in, year out. There's no variation then, is there? You've got to mix these things up as much as possible.
Yeah, I think so. I think it all starts from the review from the previous year, and it doesn't need to be extensive. Okay, how many games did we win? Why did we win them? What are we good at already? And then what about the games that we lost? How often, you know, opposing batters scored 100 against us? You know, what's the theme around that? And that's what we need to practice. As soon as you've done that, you know, and then you work out as a team, this is the one thing we need to improve. We need to take more wickets before a batter gets to 25 balls in their innings, something like that. And then what then that looks like for each individual bowler. I think it's just applying a little bit of focus, especially if that focus is linked to this, the review from the last year, and this is where we need to be moving into 2026.
Is there something that your average Premier League bowler that they tend to all do wrong? Is there an easy win, technically, physically, you know, that you tend to go to sessions, you know, if you're dealing with a 1-to-1 or whatever, that actually a lot of bowlers do wrong, that you can quickly cheat to go, do you know what, this one thing? Or is it obviously it's not that simple, but you know, is it just generally not that simple? But
my instinct immediately goes to, I remember when I was at Gloucestershire with John Bracewell, he asked me, we're going to keep things really simple. So during pre-season, the Gloucestershire bowlers, he was either a tick or a cross. Did they make the batter play or not? So I don't, because every bowler is different, you know, what I'm going to say now won't necessarily apply to every bowler. But if you're in nets, every now and then, you don't have to do it every session, but you know, how often are you bowling the ball that would go on and hit the stumps? I'm a massive fan of bowlers challenging the stumps, especially club cricket. You know, we know not every time, but in general, the wickets do a little bit. And we know that batters' techniques, for the majority, certainly ones that I used to bowl against, aren't necessarily ones that if you keep bowling the same ball, they're not going to put you under any pressures. So I think a good starting point will be ticker across. Let's have a leaderboard tonight, lads. And somebody in your net are going to just mark you. Every ball you bowl, ticker across how often you would have gone on and hit the stumps. I think that's a really nice place to start, because there's a high value. The game has changed. The landscape of the game has changed, but I don't think the game has changed. On or around the top of middle stump, even in club cricket, I don't think you can go too far wrong.
Yeah. So when you watch the Ashes over the winter, and I think there was a pitch map with one ball out of about 40 hitting the stumps, you know, as a coach, are you pulling your hair out, or from an international, you go, do you know what, actually, the game is different.
Yeah, the game is different at that sort of level. There aren't that many deliveries that are bowled that would go on and hit the stumps. You're looking to get wickets in different ways there, really. But with a new ball, it always grated me when we were left with a new ball.
Yeah.
So what are you looking to do? Well, you're looking to help bowlers get lateral movement with swing, ideally, from my point of view. Because as soon as a bowler can swing the ball, they can do anything. Just tweak the grip, get wobble seam to take swing out of it, whatever. But I'm a massive fan of bowlers learning the skill of swing. But yeah, I think it's underrated. You know, in club cricket, it's definitely underrated. How do you bowl the ball straight? Well, what impacts that is definitely technique, definitely the direction you're running in. So I am all about alignment. What direction is this bowler running in? Is there a change of direction? Because that complicates what you see through the crease. Are they running in towards the target? Particularly the last 2 or 3 strides. I actually don't mind a bit of an angle on the run-up, I'll be honest. But success leaves clues, and all the good bowlers in the world, from jump gather, back foot contact, front foot contact, first stride follow through, they are pretty much in line and taking them down the wicket. So alignment is one, being upright, presenting the upright seam. All of those things, they are the quick wins to execute in the line that you are looking to bowl, really. So again, if you just use that as a bit of a template, where am I with my technique? Am I running in the right direction? You can start kind of digging a bit deeper into the individual bit. But I think ultimately a great starting point is, am I bowling straight? Can I bowl straight?
Do you believe when it comes to that indoor work, and we know, unfortunately in this country, it is going to be 10, 12 weeks of indoor work before we get outdoors. Do you believe there's a huge element that sometimes bowlers at club level and Premier League level possibly bowl too much because they're just going in there and just banging it down as many times as they can, trying to get yards into the legs, as the old adage says, rather than, as you say, being more specific with what they do, and therefore sometimes less bowling can make you better is more almost.
If you're not bowling, you're not improving. So whilst workloads are in place, we're all aware of them. If you're not bowling, you're not improving. So I am always wary of a bowler that goes from nothing to all of a sudden rocking up and you're bowling for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So I tend to say, right, if you're drilling at low intensity, that doesn't count towards your number tonight. Okay, and I don't like bowlers talking about workloads. I think as a coach, you have an idea of the rough number that you want your bowlers to get through. And so if somebody hasn't bowled, anybody who might be listening to this hasn't bowled since September last year, I think that 5 or 6, that first session back, 5 or 6 overs is great. But if there's space allows, there's another net for bowlers to just do some drills, seam work or running drills or something like that. So the thing that I am wary of is going from nothing, and we've all seen it, a bowler that bowls for an hour and a half because they want to get through that stiffness, all this kind of stuff. That's fine. But you work back from April. You don't need to bowl an hour and a half. You might want to bowl for an hour, but with like half an hour, 40 minutes of those is drills. A team position like this, get back into it. You will be stiff. So there's quite a lot in there, like I've just said, but I think that 5 overs, that first session back is good. But at the same time, they have to run. Get those 3, 4, 5, 7K runs in during the week. So if you're training on a Thursday night, let's say, you do your run on a Monday or a Tuesday, so you're not stiff going into the Thursday. But you have to get the miles in. You don't always have to get the miles in by bowling overs. That's one method, of course, but doing those runs, because in April you're going to be standing up on your feet for 3 hours.
Yeah.
50 overs. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to replicate anything like that in an hour and a half winter training? Well, you've got to get out there and pound the streets.
100%. And I think that to me is where we know from an elite level, as you go down that pyramid, it gets less and less, and that's where the issues become, and that's where you can see the difference in a Div 3 where my club's at, or a Div 2 where Hugh's club's at next year, this coming season, or a Premier League level. You can see those guys who are putting that effort into the gym, are putting in those miles in, and you can see the difference. Let's be honest, when it comes to their fielding as well, then, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. And then what we're talking about here is just kind of lifestyle habits, really, that will put them ahead of everyone else. What I mean by that is, can you get up 5 minutes earlier to do some mobility, just some movement, just some stretch every day? Can you do that? Of course, somebody can. Okay, can you allocate? You work out what evening you're going to be training. Can you do something else like 2 or 3 days before that? And you see it everywhere. You can see it in there, like you say, you're fielding and running between the wickets and all sorts.
Absolutely.
So,
definitely.
A friend of mine's just taken up hot yoga, and his mates laughed at him. Apparently, mates at the cricket club laughed at him, and now apparently about 6 of them are doing hot yoga. Yeah. So he says it's been brilliant, and he's got a gammy back, so it's been these are. Movement is good, and strength as well. Strength movement,
and it doesn't just benefit their cricket. We're talking about their lifestyle, for God's sake.
Absolutely.
Climbing the stairs. Well, how can you do that more efficiently? If you've got a gammy knee or a back or something like that, Bikram yoga, hot yoga. I've only did that once. It completely drained me. I loved it, but I was absolutely knackered for like 1 or 2 days afterwards. It drained the hell out of me. But anything like that, it's not just the cricket side of thing, it's the lifestyle side of it as well.
Absolutely. In terms of when they're indoors, then let's look at what we can improve. What you've got the run up, you've got the load up, you've got the release positions, and obviously you've got just pure consistency. Where would you focus most bowlers from the start? I'm going to use Hugh's analogy for the last episode. You've got a 25-year-old who's been bowling in the Premier League for 6-7 years, and he's doing all right. He's pretty consistent. He's taking 40 wickets a year. We'd be quite happy with that. But actually, he's not going to get noticed unless he's into the 50s and 60s. What would you start with? Would it be his run-up? Would it be his load-up? His release positions? In terms as a coach, what would you be looking at straight away?
I think there's a couple of things. One is, the outcome will tell you everything you need to know. So what's his seam position like? So there's 4 principles. One is lateral movement, pace, accuracy, and bounce. So I think that really good performers have at least 2 ticks in those 4 boxes. So if somebody's taken 40 wickets across 18 matches, get washed out, maybe 40, 15, 16. It's a decent enough return, but how can we take it up to 50? So, I definitely look at the outcome. I know it's not always possible. I get the challenges around it, like price-wise, but can you once a month get new balls in your bowler's hands to find out who's now swinging it that maybe didn't swing it before? Who's still swinging it, and can we keep them swinging it from maybe a different position on the crease? So I would always go, the outcome will tell you everything with regard to where they're at. Can they still swing the ball into a left-hander? Can they swing the ball away from a left-hander around the wicket? Can you, with a swinging ball, attack both edges? So you're just kind of picking out what's the one thing that if we were to improve that, we could possibly take from 40 up to 50 wickets. But I always tend to work back from the outcome. And the outcome is, yes, what the ball does, of course, but also the health of the action, which I place a high value on as well. So the health of the action is keeps them on the park. Do they look after themselves? Can they bowl longer spells if they need to? Can they come back for a second or a third spell? All that kind of stuff. But let them observe is one of, I mentioned in the last podcast. Observing somebody is is something I place a high value on. And if I feel like I've seen something, I want to say something, I would probably just hang back and observe even more to make sure that is what I'm seeing consistent, or was that just like a one-off sort of thing? So yeah, look at the outcome. I mentioned earlier about what's their alignment like? Are they upright? Are they presenting an upright seam their own way? I would never look to turn bowlers into kind of clones of each other. They all get their own way. But lateral movement, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, you've not mentioned pace there.
No, I don't get me wrong, I'm a bowling coach. Of course, I get turned on by pace, flames out the back of the ball. But how do you get flames out the back of the ball? Well, your fingers have got to be behind the ball and through the back of the ball at the release. And if you do that, you would generally see swing, lateral movement. So I generally don't get a speed gun out indoors because I think that there is a difference between an indoor speed and an outdoor speed. It's different. And there is also a difference in training session speed and match speed. But so I do get the gun out every now and then because I want to know, is what I'm seeing off a short run with these slight tweaks in technique, is it adding a little bit? But I wouldn't make a massive thing of it. So pace is something, of course, I've got an eye on. But, those first few weeks back, I'm definitely looking at positions, release points, and then kind of building into, okay, now you're going to be given the ball. Let's say it's 6 weeks' time. I'm giving you the ball. Your task tonight, you've got to make things happen. I want you to take 3 wickets and 18 balls, ramp it up massively, be aggressive, set your field. So then all of a sudden, that's where you can start adding in those scenarios for pace, I guess. But in the initial few weeks, I think it's just, have they got the basics in place? And then can they slide up and down their pace range once they got the basics in place?
And in terms of juniors in particular, I think one of the things that I question all the time with juniors is the length of their run-up. Now, you've got Hugh laughing there because he knows where I'm coming from. You've got these 13, 14-year-olds who just generally think they need to run as far as they possibly can, and that's going to be the fastest way they're going to bowl. From your coaching perspective, do you watch those 13, 14-year-olds and get just bloody frustrated, to be frank, knowing that they could do exactly the same as what they do with half the run-up and probably even increase their speed? And how do you sort of address that sort of issue?
Does it look natural? Does it look a real effort? So have they been kind of exposed to, this is how you run efficiently? What we're looking at that sort of level, well, we're trying to get bowlers to run in as quickly as possible, but by using the least amount of effort because they're running technically efficient. And there's the least amount of leaks with the way that they run. So in terms of the length of their run-up, does it look natural? Does it look like the speed that they're running in and the length is something they can control through the crease? And what you see through the crease is a massive consequence of what they do in their run-up. So what am I seeing in the crease? Sometimes bowlers just aren't strong enough. They might be moving too quickly or they're jumping too high and they're collapsing through the crease. Okay, well, why is that happening? Work it back. Well, it's a massive effort. It looks hard work when they're running. So therefore, let's do some work on that. Can we get you a bit stronger? Can we get you moving more efficiently in your run-up in order to keep you more upright through the crease? If they're collapsing at back foot contact, they will be collapsing at front foot contact and energy goes down. But the length of their run-up, so the average length of a senior first-class bowler, the average length is between 20 and 25 metres. And I then kind of work it back. I work it back. What does 10, 15 metres look like for that 15, 16-year-old? Does it look like something they can repeat? Does it look natural? Well, what am I seeing through the crease? Can I push them to run even quicker? what am I then seeing through the crease? But I think a really long run up is just wasted energy.
Absolutely, and you see it indoors in particular, where as soon as they see that wall behind them, they've got to start from the wall. There's no, forget your run up. You start from the wall and you bowl when you get there, don't you? Just give me three names.
I'm a huge fan of the long run up with the kids, because it just looks hilarious. I think it shows me that they've been watching cricket on TV. They're 11 years old and they're starting from the boundary. I think it's brilliant. And then they run in and then come to a grinding halt at the crease. Yeah. Normally tip over one way or the other and bowl a wide. But I just love it because it's just brilliant. And it shows you that actually that they are invested in the game when they're that age. Obviously, you need to change. You can't. But it's just brilliant, and they get fit. Yeah,
I'll take that, Hugh. Stuart, give me three names of players that, as Hugh just said, those youngsters could watch, and you'd go, actually, when it comes to the way they run into the crease, I'm going to do the obvious one. Give me three pros who play in the 100, who I know a lot of our youngsters might have watched. Who you go, watch them how they run in, watch how they release. You go. They're not there's no such thing as perfect, full stop, but they're a really good barometer for how you should do it.
I think Adam Milne.
Yes.
Adam Milne, rhythmical, bouncy, is one of them. I don't even think he's played in the 100, but I'm a massive fan of him.
He did, and he surprised me last year. I didn't realise how quick he was, to be fair.
Yeah, he's up there. But in terms of his approach and running technique, it's just like, I watched him the other day. And he only bowled 3 balls, actually. I think was that in the Big Bash? I can't remember. He's clearly done a lot of work on his running, or he may just have played a lot of that all-round sportsman as a Kiwi. I'm a massive fan of Mitchell Starc. I don't even know if he's played in the 100, I'll be honest. Just flow, bounce.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? I mean, Wokesy's brilliant. I mean, Wokesy's done some work on his run up, particularly when he was told by England a few years ago he needs to be quicker. He also did some work on his positions at the crease. But I mean, those three, Mitchell Starc, Adam Milne, watched them the other day. There will be others out there as well. And Wokesy. You're just looking. I once did some, John Lewis. He never played in the 100, but John Lewis needed to do some work on his run up because he had a back stress fracture, and he went to a high jump coach. And I couldn't quite understand the high jump coach because of the curve and stuff. I understand more a long jump coach, rhythm, flow, increase, get to the right gear you need and maintain. But all of those bowlers, they would have done some work on the way that they run. And so, that people, young bowlers could do a lot worse than to YouTube it and copy them. Honestly, it makes the action from a bowling coach's point of view. If you've got young bowlers who has been coached, taught how to run, you can start layering in the skills really quickly.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Chris Woakes there. He's coming to the end of his cricket career. I'm of the opinion that we should be able to sack the current king and replace him with Chris Woakes, because he just seems like the nicest man in the history of the world. I think most of the nation would get behind Chris Woakes being king. Please give us some dirt on Chris Woakes, because it doesn't look like there could possibly be any dirt on him.
Right, that's a line I'm unwilling to cross.
Oh, hang on, he didn't say he can't.
He must have had a pint at somebody. He swore once. It's just. I met him with my daughter a few years back, and it was just the big line of signatures. He's a great looking guy, isn't he? He's tall. He's great at sport. He used to be a really good footballer as well. It makes you sick what a nice person he is. In all this carnage of cricket, you think somebody you would have got mildly grumpy at some point. Never seems to do that. And then he goes out and bats without any arms. Honestly,
I've never humility. He is like in the dressing room, and every time I've worked with him, he's exactly the same as his interviews. Such a nice guy, but you don't get to his longevity with having a bit about you. Big ticker, fire in his eyes,
steel.
But then that awareness of how does he want to show that to the media, to the fans, to his family, all this kind of stuff. But he is so consistent as a personality. I think there's a lot to be said in that.
Yeah, and I talk of consistency. I'm going to throw another name at you from last season that I didn't know a lot about, but now I'm a huge fan of, and you'll have worked with this guy at Warwickshire, I'm sure. Ed Barnard looks to me like a player who works with coaches, looks to me like a player who loves getting, putting that effort in and growing as a player all the time. Yeah. And he's got that sort of, to me, relatively smooth. Can watch him I could see him playing Premier League on a Saturday, NCCA on a Sunday, and then playing for Warwickshire on a Tuesday in a 4-day game. That sort of analogy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there's some club bowlers watching Ed bowl thinking, well, I can do that. Well, you probably could, but have you put in the work that Ed has done? And often, Ed's a fantastic all-round fielder. His fielding all-rounder, his fielding and his batting. He's an absolute jet of a cricketer.
Yeah.
But and I've seen it, and I get questioned every now and then. Well, how's he a so-and-so cricketer? Professional cricketer. I said, well, you could do that, but it's always the work. Are you willing to put in the work when nobody is around?
Yeah.
And lots of club cricketers show off on a Saturday and get talked about a lot, but are you doing the work away from the Saturday? And I'm sure a lot of people are, but we all know that there's some egos out there that say, I should be this, I should be that. Don't live in a should world. Work out what is missing, put some work in, and then watch what happens.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
Marvel Television's Wonder Man, an 8-episode series, now streaming on Disney+.
A superhero remake, not exactly what we'd expect from an Oscar-winning director.
Action! Simon Williams, audition for Wonder Man.
I'm gonna need you to sign this, assuming you don't have superpowers.
I'll never work again if anyone found out.
My lips are sealed.
Marvel Television's Wonder Man. All 8 episodes now streaming, only on Disney+.
Are there professional cricketers out there that are, top professionals that don't put that work in? That are just so talented. Are those players still there in the game? Like maybe, your Paul Gascoigne. I mean, Paul may have been, incredibly hard trainer, but those kind of Matt Letizia, to use an analogy from a legend when I was playing, not so much of a legend anymore, but those kind of players. Or actually, are they going out of the game? Do you have to put that work in, regardless of your talent?
I think that. So to answer your question, I've worked with a lot of players that remind me of me when I was a pro cricketer, and I got found out, and they will get found out as well eventually. So, what is it you want? Do you just want to become a professional cricketer, or do you want to become a good one? Do you want a 2-year career like I did, and I wasn't ready? I didn't have the right habits, or do you want a 8 to 14 year? Because if you want an 8 to 14 year, then let's get the right habits. Let's be consistent. Yeah. Some people, I think, just want the shirt, even if it's just for 1 year, and that's okay. If that's all they want to prove something, that's okay. But then it's the people that want a little bit more than just the shirt. Then we can do something about that.
Tom Scollay, who talked to, I think he talks about that. He came to the Northern Territory via Western Australia via Middlesex.
Yeah.
And I think he said, actually, he just worked that hard to be a pro cricketer, and it was almost like he ticked it, and then wasn't mentally able to go to the next level, and now he's taken that into his coaching. That sort of didn't quite achieve what actually he should have achieved, but has been able to turn into an absolutely incredible cricket coach. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I know Tom. I've had a few conversations with him, and I didn't actually realise that lots of his memories and experiences were similar to mine. And I guess he's another example of, a bit of taking something away from you and then using fuel. So he's doing a great job with his coaching.
Absolutely. You talk about that, whether they're going to be in there for 1 year or 8 to 14 years and getting there, bringing it back full round to the Premier League cricketers and all those guys who are in the nets right now. In terms of physical prep, robustness, getting ready for the season, you've already mentioned about the loads that they're going to bowl during the winter and just being slightly careful with that. But what sort of red flags would you see when you're a coach? You walk into a net session and you go, hang on a minute, this ain't right.
Anyone who talks about injuries all the time.
Okay.
Anyone who talks about their body before they bowl the ball. I believe
making excuses effectively.
Yeah, and we've all seen them. You kind of, okay, just get on with it, sort of thing, and then kind of see what happens. Really, bit of a tension, isn't it? Mm-hmm. At the same time, I've known some absolute genius players that talk about the injuries and stuff, and they get on the park and stuff, and they just won the game out the bag, sort of thing. If a bowler is bowling once a week, I think that how they prep to bowl on a hard surface becomes really important. If they're bowling 2 or 3 times a week, their prep is still important. So is their prep consistent? I think we are coming away, and I know that there's hundreds of thousands of club cricketers out there that still believe this. We're coming away from warm up by bowling. Because actually you're not placing an emphasis on your first ball there. Because, and I always think, okay, going back to how can I add some value to my team? Well, don't work into a spell. Make sure that you are ready from ball one. I remember having a conversation with Alan Donald years ago, and he talks a lot about a preparation area, and he talks about a performance area. And he talks about bowlers leading the way in terms of the standards that are set at club cricket and any cricket.
Yeah.
And what he meant was, when we really drilled down, was you do your prep beforehand. So your first ball against the batter, you don't allow them to get in. Who are they? Let's treat this as we would do a game. We wouldn't want the opposition batter to have 2 overs worth of seeing you.
Yeah.
So preparation area, and then as soon as you go in the performance area, whether for short run or long run, it doesn't matter. But the intensity and that intent and that focus and that clarity, you're on it from ball one. So anybody that wants to warm up by bowling, that's not really for me. It doesn't cut it for me, really.
Absolutely. But in terms of that being ready, as you say, to bowl once a week for however long it is in the nets for the next 10 to 12 weeks, what sort of, apart from putting those 5K runs in, etc., what sort of other strength, mobility things would you put in place to prevent those injuries and therefore not have them giving it all that about them?
Yeah, I mean, all I can do is encourage them. It's got to be them to want to do it. But if they really want to do it, then strong legs, strong core, flexibility. Basically, if they go into the gym, push, pull, lunge, squat, flexibility and core, those are the areas you really, those exercises are quite simple, push, bench press. Who doesn't like to do a bench press? Pull-ups. So they'll be doing, if you go into the gym, they'll be doing those sort of exercises. So that's away from practice. But in terms of preparation, anybody that gets into that habit I mentioned earlier, get 5 minutes earlier and do strength side. I ought to be getting commission from him, but strength side is a YouTube channel that I think is brilliant for mobility, and they literally have anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes mobility. The way we move as bowlers is really important because it's not just our muscles, it's our ligaments, it's our tendons that need to be ready to perform to keep us upright. So mobility, and then, you know, on a training night, I'm a big fan of med ball exercises.
And get the muscles moving with those heavier weights effectively that way.
Totally. You're looking to move an object at pace, which is where slamming a med ball into the floor or into a wall, that's very specific, because what you're doing, you're firing up your central nervous system, which is what you need for bowling.
Absolutely. And in terms of the non-physical side, because you talk very, very well about the mental side of that, how do you keep them feeling motivated when, let's be honest, it can be quite repetitive?
Winter training?
Yeah.
Steer clear of just bowlers becoming a conveyor belt of bowlers, because that can become competitive. How can you break this down? So bowlers are not bowling machines for batters. So how do you keep bowlers motivated? Well, you can drag bowlers out and have conversations with them. I think that monotony, bowl a ball, wait for your turn, bowl again, do that then breeds boredom. So then, you know, you need to be a little bit creative. And I understand the challenges around this kind of thing with the size of facilities, the size of the group and all this kind of stuff. I do get it. But finding those creative opportunities to challenge bowlers, you know, not high challenge necessarily, but just some sort of challenge club bowlers, because that then stimulates thought and conversation. How do your last 6 balls went? Well, all right. Talk to me about your last 2 overs, because I've noticed that with the field that you set, you've gone for 4 boundaries. What can we do? Do we need to change your field? Just some sort of conversation to get them engaged. I think that's the way to do it.
Absolutely. You certainly got me thinking from my own coaching perspective, things I'm going to be talking about when I go into nets, definitely. In terms of preparing for April, then, you know, we're sort of, you know, early mid-March. The guys have been in there now 6 to 8 weeks. They've got another 4 weeks to go before they get out there. This is the time they now should start ramping it up.
In terms of bowling? Yeah. You've got to start bowling now. I always think to get a bowler from nothing to, let's say it's a 50 over competition they're going to be playing in, to get the guys from nothing to bowling 10 overs in a game and stand on their feet for 3 hours, it takes longer than you think. You're going to need every one of those 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's not just your one training session per week. It's the other stuff that you can do in and around that, which is what we already discussed. I think the initial thing is, what am I already good at and what do I need to keep on top of? And then what's the one thing that if I were to add to my game that would make me a better bowler? And that comes from, it doesn't need to be extensive review. It's just have a think back to last year. Did I struggle against left-handers? Did I struggle around the wicket? Did I struggle bowling uphill? Did I struggle with a wet ball? Whatever it might be. And by the way, it's fairly easy and creative to 1 week or maybe more weeks to get bowlers bowling with a wet ball. You just stand at the back, grab their ball and have the water spray at the end there. You just spray it every single ball. How specific is that? And it's different as well. So most
definitely. We're coming to the end.
It's going to be a gorgeous summer.
Hugh, that was last year. Come on. Do you know we've done
two in a row.
We've actually done quite a few episodes, Hugh, you realise, without talking about the weather. So we're going to avoid that. It was so
good last year, we just shut up.
Hey, great to talk all things sort of mid-net season, mid-pre-season there, Stuart. And look forward to talking to you in April when we're just literally a couple of weeks away. And most importantly, the boys will start getting outdoors. Yeah. You know, there'll be some pre-season outdoors then for 1 or 2 places. Hopefully the weather has helped well, and we'll all be outdoors then. So look forward to catching up with you then, mate.
Yeah, will do. Thanks again. Good to catch up.
Cheers now.